What is the moment you realized you were dating a keeper? My mom died unexpectedly when I was 20. I'm 29 now and sometimes still have a really difficult time dealing with the emotions of losing her. One year right around her birthday, I was feeling pretty blue. I came home from work on her actual birthday and he was standing in the kitchen holding a cake he had baked, complete with a lit candle, and said just because she died doesn't mean we can't celebrate that she lived. I just sobbed and he held me close until I had cried it out. Then we celebrated her life. Every year since then, he has bought her a birthday card and we light a candle to remember her. He's an amazing man. Edit. Forgot a word, edit again. Thank you so much for the gold. Kind Redditor, you made my day. I'll pay it forward soon. First post in this thread to make me cry. You hold on to him tight and don't let go. So sorry to hear about your mother. About a month in, my father was going through some stuff that made us think he might have cancer and the doctors ran a bunch of tests. While this was going on, I was having lunch with her one day and related to her that I was in no way ready to find out that my dad had cancer and how much that scared me. She listened and sympathized and told me not to worry. She was great. About a week later I was eating alone in a bar near my place while she was at a graduation party with her family. I was a semester behind. Not a good student. I get a call from her and can barely understand her through the tears. All she can really tell me is that she'd like to be picked up. I go to get her and on the ride home she spills her guts. Turns out her father was in the middle of a battle with brain cancer and her mother had not done a good job of preparing her for how much worse he had gotten since she had seen him last. It was more than she could handle in a public setting like that. It was then that I realized what kind of person she is. She sat there and listened to me going on and on about how scared I was for my father. And she chose to support me instead of telling me just how little I knew about what it means to be losing a parent. She is the most beautiful, caring and selfless person I know. Every day I'm with her I become a better person. We've been together now for 5 years. Married for 5 and I still fall more in love with her every day. I personally don't have those moments that people talk about when they know it happened. I usually remember the progression. For me though, one day I kind of realized I had been thinking about us all the time. What I mean by that is before we met, I had plans and visions of traveling to different places and doing different things. I would hike the and cycle across America. I would go to new cities and find a great job. I would have all these adventures and meet all these people. I was going to have a blast. I stopped thinking and at some point, those thoughts became us having all these adventures. We would travel to a new city and start a life. We would do this awesome thing and go to this awesome place. We would have a great life. She snuck her way into my life and I didn't even know it. When I realized that was exactly what I wanted. She was exactly what I wanted. We are exactly what I want. My older sister came to visit when I first began dating my girlfriend. I had told my girlfriend how close I was to my sister and how wonderful she was. Previous girlfriends had found my sister threatening because of our closeness. My girlfriend couldn't come over due to obligations until about 10 PM on the evening my sister arrived. My sister was in the guest room in bed beneath the mosquito netting. I live in the tropics. When my girlfriend and I walked in the room, she lifted the netting, crawled in next to my sister, and gave my sister a big hug, telling her how happy she was to meet her. They have been close ever since, and my girlfriend and I have been married now for 24 years. I think it's safe to say she's your wife now. Maybe. That she still smiles every time we kiss, just like the first time. Every time. Wouldn't trade it for anything. That is probably the sweetest thing I have ever heard. Tears in my eyes pleased for you. We'd been dating long distance for a few months, and then one night he surprised me by popping over unexpectedly. I leaped out the door and attached myself to him. Hadn't really realized how much I needed him before that. He moved in right then, and it's been the best 12 years of my life since. My boyfriend was an Eagle Scout who collected rocks when he was little. He had purchased a heart-shaped tiger's eye from Disneyland when he was a tot and kept it hidden with the intention of gifting it to the girl he was going to marry. One night, when I was almost asleep, he asked me if I would want a promise rock. This is the first he had mentioned the rock, and in my sleep talking haze, I didn't understand and kept repeating, "Promise gravel? How romantic." Months later he gave me the rock for Christmas. Despite my sleepy subconscious being a real killjoy, it is the single most sentimental object I own, and is a physical symbol of all the incredibly romantic things he has done for me. Are you two secretly otters? *IT*SLOK *WON*T*L. My boyfriend and his family have this little ritual where they squeeze each other's hand 3 times to signify "I love you." 4 times as a return to signify "I love you too." I didn't know that he had told me he loved me in this secret family way until after we'd told each other with words how we felt. All that time he'd been telling me he loved me, and I was never saying it back because I never knew not to make a big deal out of it, not to get me to say it back, not because he wanted anything, but just because he wanted to tell me he loved me in his own special way. When I found that out, I think I realized that this was more than love. I don't know if this will mean anything to anyone but me, but I think it's painfully romantic, and it makes my heart hurt. It was my birthday. I came home from work and was going to shower and change because she had said that we had reservations at a nice restaurant. We didn't really have much money and I didn't really feel like going out, but my birthday gave us a good excuse to splurge a little. So I wasn't complaining. As I opened the door, she was standing there waiting for me. In her hands, she was holding a plate on which sat a BLT with, I you not, a full pound of bacon on it. She directed me to the couch, where she had a bourbon waiting for me. When we sat down to eat, she hit play on the DVD player and Fellowship of the Ring started playing. We finished our sandwiches, and she turned to me with a slightly ashamed look and confessed, "I'm sorry, but I don't have a cake for you." "That's okay," I said. This was already perfect. She took our plates to the kitchen, then returned to refill my bourbon. She went back in the kitchen and turned on the sink to wash the plates. 2 minutes later, she walks in the living room with a beautiful, homemade peach pie, birthday candles and all. My absolute favorite dessert on the planet. It seems so small, but to me, it was enormous. She knew me. She knew exactly how to make that day special for me. I remember looking at her that night and knowing, with total certainty, that I was going to marry that woman. When he showed up on my doorstep with wine in San Francisco, after driving 8 hours as a surprise, somehow he managed to keep it all a secret till he was there. I thought I wasn't going to get to see him at all that summer. His reason? He just missed me. I booked tickets to fly next day to America from Scotland the day before her birthday, after saying I would be there if I could, and realizing I had no good reason to not be there. She left me for one of our closest friends. I would have kept her forever. The feeling must not have been mutual. Well, that whole thing just escalated very quickly. When I realized he'd never broken a promise to me, no matter how big or small. He said he'd be there at 3. He's there at 3. He said he'll take out the trash. It is done. Ouch. Mine never does what he says, and it's driving me insane. He's perpetually late. He forgets the most basic things, and the worst thing is, he doesn't do it on purpose. When I pooped, her bed was deathly sick, some kind of food poisoning, and had literally no control over anything. Woke up covered in poo, and just said "oh my god," and ran to the bathroom. Came back, and everything was already cleaned up. Fresh sheets, mattress flipped, and she never did anything but make sure I was okay. She's comfortable enough to clean up my poo. Keep her. Early on in our relationship, I took her to visit my mom's house. While we were there, we started looking through some of my childhood belongings that were in boxes in the garage, and at one point I remembered that my favorite stuffed animal, a dog, that I had since birth was kept in there as well. By complete coincidence, my mom's actual dog had very recently managed to find my stuffed dog and had ripped it apart. There was a trail of stuffing leading outside to the doghouse. I felt abysmal at seeing my favorite childhood toy destroyed like that. but I wanted to try and maintain my composure since this was still in the early days of my relationship with this woman. It was no use. My lip quivered and some decidedly unmanly tears were shed. This woman, this wonderful young woman, picked up the remains of my not stuffed anymore dog and said that she could fix it, and she did. His ears were forever lost, and now he has sort of a two-face thing going on, but he's whole again and now I've passed doggy down to our son. Edit. Thank you for the gold. Edit 2. Turns out the stuffed dog is currently at my in-laws house, where my son goes each day while my wife and I work. I've asked grandma to either take a picture for me or bring it over tomorrow so I can take a picture. When I realized that I had spent 2 months straight with him, literally every single day, without getting sick of him. I've always been super independent, and I usually got sick of people quickly. My relationships never lasted more than a few months. We've lived together for a little over a year, and I still get butterflies when I come home to him. Wow. This gives me hope. Thank you. Never lose hope. I had literally given up on dating. I kept dating total losers and douchebags. I was content on being alone and never getting married and then. Sounds so cheesy, but it's true. I was in college. I was working 2 jobs. 60 hours a week. I met her on a Cupid. She would come over and we would hang out. Often we would watch a movie and I would fall asleep exhausted. She would put the covers over me, go downstairs, walk past the front door, through the dining room, the kitchen and into the computer room, to say goodbye to my dad. Every time she left, she made sure to say goodbye to my parents. Edit. I was informed I didn't actually answer the ops question. The moment was when my father stopped me one day and told me something along the lines of, for the last X time Samantha has been here, she has come down and said goodbye to me after you fell asleep on her. If you keep doing that you are going to lose her. Apostrophe. This is such a big deal for me. My first serious boyfriend in college visited me at my family's house during summer break. He was there all day, had dinner with us, played a board game, etc. When he left, I walked him to his car and kissed him goodbye. I came back into the house and my parents were confused. Did he leave? My mom asked. He didn't say goodbye to my parents or thank them for dinner? Oh my gosh. My husband and I met on eHarmony. I'll let him know from the start that I had a young child and he assured me that he was okay with that. My son was 1.5 months old when we met. Long story. And when he came to pick me up on our first date, he brought my son a teddy bear that played music and a pack of cute Valentine's Day bibs. I thought that was a really sweet gesture. We had an amazing first date and we started dating regularly. He was there for me when I was going through the challenges of being a first-time mother, trying to breastfeed and, ultimately, finding out I couldn't make enough milk to feed my child, and having to put him on formula. I was devastated. For a man I just met, I couldn't believe he was so willing to help in a situation where most men would turn tail and run. But that wasn't the clincher. One night, he was sitting in the recliner at my parents' house holding my son and trying to burp him after a feeding. He had him propped up on his shoulder and was speaking to him softly. I don't think he thought I could hear, but I heard him say, "Come on, little guy, burp for daddy." After the circumstances surrounding how my son came to be and all that I had been through in the recent months following up to his birth, I felt broken. Like no one would ever want me, let alone truly love me and my child. I'm happy to say he proved me completely wrong. We've been together for almost 5 years, married for over 3.5 years, and we are expecting baby #3. We had been together for almost 2 years already, and I loved him so much already. But I knew when we were in line at Subway and they asked him what kind of bread he liked and he said, "Italian." Paused, looked at me, and whispered, "That's the kind I like, right?" I just had a doorway moment reading this 3. Early on in our relationship I was in and out of sleep one night and he's awake confessing his love for me to my cat. I don't remember everything he said, but when I woke up the next morning with our bodies completely entwined with one another with very little space between, that's when I knew. The past 5 years we've been through it all, and I wouldn't trade any of it for anything. She got us tickets to a hockey game on Valentine's Day. Edit. Our wedding is in June. Did you get to see the #1 cop in town? Bobrovsky. You're back on the force. Bobrovsky. We had been dating for a little less than a year, and I was crazy about him. But still had some reservations because we're young, and who hasn't been hurt before? Well, my grandmother passed away late December, and I got the call from my mom while he was at band practice. He knew how much she meant to me, so when I called him crying, he left immediately and held me. I felt so safe and comforted that I knew he was really special. But the funeral was what really sealed the deal. He had only met my grandmother once, and it was when she was pretty far gone. I wasn't expecting him to come to the funeral because it was 2 hours away and he'd have to face crazy holiday traffic. He drove almost 3 hours in horrible traffic in a very respectful suit to be with me for 1 hour, and even went through with meeting my entire extended family. He showed so much respect for me and for her that I knew I'd never find anyone else like him, no matter how hard I tried. When he explained in detail the treehouse he plans to build for me, I almost didn't upvote you due to jealousy. I want a treehouse. Twist. Lucy_Furious10. Not gonna lie, I'm kinda jealous. I have nowhere good to put a treehouse. Plus, I'd probably have to build it myself. My wife doesn't like working with tools. The feeling of emptiness when she's not around. It's easy to take your so for granted when you spend all of your time with them. But I knew she was the one when she left for 8 months. Every minute she was gone felt like half of me was missing. Work sucked. Playing video games sucked. Watching sports sucked. I went to visit her halfway through the term she was gone, and that feeling of unification is indescribable. At the same time, turning and walking away from her to airport security was the hardest thing I've ever done, knowing it would be for long, cold winter months before I could see her again. That was last Sunday. She'll be home for good in April, when we'll move in together. Until then, back to reading askreddit threads at work, because I simply lack the motivation to do anything else.